Hi, this is Pastor Joel Webbin with Right Response Ministries, and you're listening to another episode of our show called Questions. Today's question is this: how should Christians think about climate change? How should Christians think about climate change? To flesh the question out a little bit more, we have this: Christians are called to be good stewards of creation, as well as loving towards their neighbors. Therefore, is it a sin for wealthy Christians to use energy sources such as fossil fuels, knowing that it causes harm to the environment and may cause harm to our future neighbors due to climate change? Good question. So about twice a week, as a new homeowner here in the great state of Texas, I have someone from some solar company come to my front door and try to sell me solar panels. And they make every argument they possibly can, and I don't blame them. They're trying to make a living. And I say no. I say no again and again and again. And I have to really be careful, actually. I have to really guard myself because sometimes I am very tempted to say no in a mean-spirited way because it makes me angry. And you know why it makes me angry? It makes me angry because I love God and I love my neighbors. And solar panels are responsible for freezing my neighbors here in Texas to death. A couple hundred of my neighbors died by freezing to death in their homes. And I believe it was an 11-year-old or 13-year-old, I believe an 11-year-old boy died during the Texas freeze, the beginning of 2021. He died in his bed in the night, froze to death. Why? Because of renewable energy. That's why. Because of solar. That's why. Why did Texas's grid fail, right? All the libs were so excited, when Texas froze over. They were real excited, right? Because, Texas says, that they're good with energy and they make fun of us for our renewable energy and all those kinds of things, but then their grid fails. Texas's grid failed because they started listening. They started listening to liberal insanity. And they started enforcing and giving, not so much enforcing, I should say it like this. The government of Texas started incentivizing, as the federal government does, renewable sources of energy, wind and solar. Now, what happens with that, and this is always the pitch, right? So as I have my 2 to 3 solicitors per week in my neighborhood coming to my door trying to sell me solar, this is their pitch. They say, the government's going to pay for it. Why not? Why would you not get solar, Mr. Webbin? The government's going to pay for it. It's going to cost you virtually nothing. We just need you to sign your name on the dotted line to make the government that is already given funds to subsidize renewable sources of energy, to get them to just delegate those resources to being solar panels on your particular roof. Why wouldn't you sign up? It's a great idea. Well, this is why. I love my neighbors. I don't want them to freeze, and I don't want to steal from them. It's important that we keep in mind the government produces nothing. Nothing. The government they don't have some kind of good, some kind of product. They don't produce anything. So what I mean by that is the government doesn't have money. They don't. The people have money. Private citizens have money. Families, fathers and mothers and children, households have money. Corporations and businesses have money. The government doesn't have money. It does not have its own money. All the government has is your money. So whenever the government gives incentives, we'll pay for this. What you should immediately hear is, we will at gunpoint force others to pay for this. Right? The government, when they say we're incentivizing renewable sources of energy, what they're saying is we are raising taxes on people who don't have solar panels and don't want solar panels to pay for other people's solar panels. So one, it is not loving my neighbors. to tip my hat to the government and say, this is okay. I approve of what you're doing. I think it's appropriate for you to pay for solar panels on my roof, knowing that you stole that money from my neighbor. So it's not loving my neighbor in that regard, because thou shalt not steal. It's also not loving my neighbor because thou shalt not bear false witness. Renewable sources of energy is false witness. This is what I mean. It bears a false testimony. The testimony is that it works. It doesn't. The only way renewable sources of energy have lasted as long as they do, like solar companies, the only way it's lasted as long as it has is because the government steals from private citizens through exorbitant taxes to prop it up. If renewable energy had to compete in the free market against fossil fuels and other forms of energy, they'd be gone by the end of the week. It is not fiscally sustainable. It's not cost effective. It does not produce very much energy, and it costs way, way, way too much. You know, the old adage goes like this: a windmill produces just enough energy to make another windmill. It's ridiculous. And the reason why people froze to death in their homes in Texas, including an 11-year-old boy, his mother and father woke up the next day to find their son dead in his bed. The reason why is not because Texas doesn't have fossil fuels or doesn't have a good grid or this or that. It's because little by little, over the last 10, 15 years or so, Texas began to outsource and diversify its sources of energy from sources that work, that are tried and true, to renewable sources of energy that Texas would have never even considered unless the government, both federal and state, at the state level also, didn't incentivize and say, we know it's not a great source of energy, it doesn't produce much, its cost is way high, but we'll pay for the vast majority of it by raising taxes on private citizens and making them pay. So it's false witness. The false witness is it says, this is a good idea, and it's not. It doesn't work. And it also, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not murder. It killed a couple hundred people in my state this year, freezing to death in their homes. So it kills, it also bears false witness, it lies, and it also steals because it raises taxes for no reason. So it steals. So it is not loving your neighbor. So in devotion to Christ and love for people, I have to temper myself every time the solar guys come to my door. Because what I want to do is I want to grab them by the collar and say, get off my porch and don't ever come back. Instead, I say, please find another job. What you're selling is a lie, and please remove me from your list. And I think that's respectful. And I know that it's true. Now, all that being said, the final question might be this. Well, what about climate change? We need some kind of clean energy source that does work, that does produce a lot of energy and is cost effective and safe, and that doesn't also ruin the earth in the process. Yeah, it's called nuclear. That's it. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, would you consider supporting this ministry by giving a donation of any amount? You can do so by going to our website, rightresponseministries.com. Let's be frank. Sadly, many evangelical pastors and leaders are serving as nothing more than water carriers for the political left. Just as those in the political left hate you, just like those corporations that are left-leaning hate you, these pastors and evangelical leaders hate you. I know that's a strong statement to make. I'm aware of that, but it's true. They don't care about your personal liberty. They don't care about your freedom. They want you to love your neighbor at the expense of biblical truth, even if it means bearing false witness. That's not us. We're different. We're not the only ones. I don't want to be arrogant. God has reserved a remnant for himself in this time, as he has all other ages and all other places, but they are few and far between. It's called a remnant for a reason. We need your help. We want to stand up to tyranny. We want to stand up to this new left totalitarian regime. We want to defend Christians and people, the salt of the earth, who love America and who love God's word. But we can't do it without your help. If you're not prepared or able to give a financial gift, one way that you can support this ministry is by simply subscribing to our YouTube channel and clicking the bell so that you'll be notified as we come out with new content. You can also help us by sharing our content on all your social media platforms so that more people can hear the truth of God's word with courage and fidelity. Thanks for tuning in. God bless.